it's thinking and your life.
Hi, welcome to Dulcimoon Talk number 44. I'm here today with Alice Mears, and I'm really excited to have you here, Alice.
Thank you so much. I am thrilled to be here.
It's great. It's fantastic. I first met you when Steve told me I should hire you for the Berkeley Dulcimer Gathering online, and that was wonderful. I think that was the one we were going to do in person, and then we had to pivot. I'm not sure, but
I don't remember the timeline.
yeah.
All I remember is I treasure my black t-shirt and wear it often and think of you fondly.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's a great design. Those t-shirts, boy, they pile up, don't they?
They do. And I can tell which ones I wear most. They're the ones on top of the stack. So,
So tell people where you're from, where you're meeting me from.
I'd love to. I'm downstairs in my house, which is 11 miles north of Branson, Missouri. Here's the short story. I grew up in North Louisiana. Ray and I married. We spent almost 25 years in Memphis, Tennessee before retiring ish and heading to the Ozarks 13 years ago now. So I'm in Southwest Missouri.
All right. So that's the Ozarks.
It is definitely the Ozarks where it is beautiful every day.
I love that area. I haven't been there myself, but I've seen so many, like movies and stuff that where they definitely take in the beauty of the area.
It's interesting. It was foggy this morning, and there was a mother deer and her fawn still with all the spots on it outside my bedroom window when I got up this morning. So I love getting up and seeing the wildlife, at least most of it.
Ah, at least most of it.
Most of it.
The bears, not so much, right?
Well, there is a bear that lives here who had two cubs this spring. I
Aw,
haven't seen it, I've just seen pictures. That's pretty exciting until they eat your bird feeder.
yeah. Eat your
Yeah,
bird feeder. Yeah, not a thing I have to worry about here.
it's
We do
fun.
have the occasional coyotes. Some deer come through, and we have our very own flock of turkeys on Albany Hill in California here.
We share that.
Yep, I'm sure. I'm sure. So you teach and write for and arrange for and play hammer dulcimer, but I see all these other instruments behind you. Are they all part of your repertoire?
No, they're just decorative. I make no pretense.
Okay.
Actually, the violin that's hanging up behind my head
Mhm.
was my mother's.
Aw.
My mother was a music teacher, church musician, all the fun things when I was growing up. And she started her career actually during World War II when all the band directors went off to join the army, and mom got a job teaching band and orchestra out in West Texas, um, and went on from there. So she made sure that I started piano and violin very early. A friend of hers lived in Japan and sent a quarter size violin,
Aw.
I think when I was 5 or 6, for me to begin with. And I still have it. I put it on the Christmas wreath sometime. um, but music was what we did at my house. So
That's great. Did you have siblings?
I have a half brother and a half sister who are older than I. They were daddies. And even though my sister is 16 years older than I, and we didn't really grow up together, she is an amazing musician, a pianist to whom I would aspire to be. Oh my goodness, she's tremendous, and we're more alike than we ever should have been. So, yeah, same sense of humor, and we value musically a lot of the same things.
That's wonderful.
It really
That's
is.
wonderful. Yeah. As someone who was also brought up in a musical family, it's really wonderful to be able to like play duets with each other or to sing together or whatever you can do. I always tell people I my mother made me a musician from when I was in the womb. I had no
Right.
choice.
Exactly. And there were times when I thought, no, I don't want to do this anymore, and or I'd like to do that, and I'm glad I stuck out the path.
Yeah.
That sounds kind of weird, um, but the piano and violin, as I said, I began very early, and um, enjoyed it greatly. That was never the issue. There were times when I thought it took a little too much time, but we're kids and we all think that.
Right.
Um, Violin was what put me through college, paid for my
Wow.
first two cars, um,
Wow.
and for a while there kept us above the poverty level when the kids were little. Um,
Mhm.
because in North Louisiana, if you played a string instrument, you played a lot. So I had this wonderful environment in which, as a high schooler, I began playing with the Monroe Symphony, the Ruston Symphony, the Natchitoches Symphony, the local college orchestra, the South Arkansas Symphony on a rotating basis. So we got lots and lots and lots of experience in orchestral playing. And because I really wasn't terribly fond of practicing a lot, I got really good at sight reading. So you build some skills that way. And so, of course, music notation is a second language for me,
Yeah.
and I appreciate all the opportunities that I was given and the encouragement by so many teachers and friends and people in the music community to keep going. At the
Yeah.
time, I didn't know hammer dulcimers existed.
I
Um,
was going to say that the sight reading aspect would come in really handy once you did encounter the hammer dulcimer.
it would if it weren't so physically difficult to read and play at the same time.
That's true.
Excuse me.
That's true
Um,
for all of us, mountain dulcimer as
it just
well.
kind of is, isn't it? So,
Yeah, it
yes, I
is.
can do this without looking. I wish I were better at it.
So, how on earth did you encounter the hammer
Well,
dulcimer?
um, probably in the very early 80s, still living in Louisiana, we started visiting this area, Branson in particular, and Silver Dollar City.
Mhm.
I had heard some mountain dulcimers. We'd been to Mountain View a few times. And okay, so I was a terrible music snob and made fun of all these people who did this sort of thing because, that was not real music.
Yeah.
And oh my goodness, what a fool I was. Anyway, so we had gone to Silver Dollar City, and in several places on the grounds there were these guys were playing this instrument. I said, "What is that? I want one." It was the most extraordinary sound I can't describe, but I thought it was beautiful, and that was my introduction to a hammered dulcimer. Um, we were young and poor and couldn't afford it. I couldn't justify it, and so that was kind of put it on the shelf and go on with your life. Not too long after that, Ray started building mountain dulcimers. He got the bug from the McSpaddens and decided, hey, I can do this. And so he was doing them and taking them to art shows and winning prizes for crafting these instruments. He really didn't play. I didn't really play. And I thought, oh, if you can do this, you can build me a harpsichord because I really wanted a harpsichord. I don't know why. I was young and idiotic. So, and he said, no, I don't think so. After we heard the hammer dulcimer, can you build me one of those? He actually ordered the plans and looked at the plans and said, yeah, someday. We know how that goes. Projects are projects. Um, Eventually, I turned 50 living in Memphis and said, you know what? I do not have to justify everything I do in life. I'm going to buy a hammer dulcimer. looked and looked and looked because you have to remember, I knew absolutely no one who played a hammer dulcimer.
Right.
I knew what they were. I knew one when I saw it. I wasn't sure exactly what I was looking for. I knew I couldn't spend a whole lot of money, but I wanted something that was I liked the sound of. And so we went several places and I played and looked around and finally bought what turned out to be a Rick Thumb Traveler at a little folk music shop that's no longer
Wow.
there in Memphis.
That's great.
Bought it in July of 2006.
Oh, wow.
And at that time, Lee Cagle and Carla Maxwell were running the Memphis Dulcimer Gathering, the festival that Lark and Brian had gone on for years. Um, and then they were running it, and I said, okay, I'll go to this festival in September. That was my first experience. There was one hammer dulcimer class. There were no divisions, just one class. Rick Thumb was teaching it. And the first class he taught was on the Pleasure House rag, syncopation. Okay, this is great. I know where my D string is. I know where the G string was. That's about all. So I was a wee bit lost. And there was a jam that night, and I thought, I've never been to a jam. I don't know what happens there, but I'll go because paid my money, might as well go. So I went to this jam in a classroom about the size of my basement down here that had, I know, 8,000 mountain dulcimers, cheek to cheek, thigh to thigh, playing these mountain dulcimers, and precisely two hammer dulcimers, me and another lady who was also a beginner. And they played and they played and they played. And every once in a while, Rick, who was leading the jam, would pass by and yell, D, D, D. And I'd play my D. Come on, yell, G, G. And I'd play my G. And so it was interesting. Went to class the next day and said, so why did it sound like that? How do you know what they're playing? And he said, oh, they call the name of the tunes. Well, I hadn't heard one name of one tune, and I certainly didn't hear anything recognizable. I didn't know any of those tunes at all. And I said, well, why can't I hear the melody? Because everybody's playing chords. I was like, oh. So if I know the melody, then I can hear the melody. Right. Set a goal. Okay, next year I'm going to come back and I will know 3 tunes. 3.
Okay.
Surely I can learn 3 tunes in a year, don't you think? So sure enough, I came back the next year and I knew about 5. It was great. And
That's
things
what a
went on from there.
what a
So
wonderful way to get yourself into it.
it was. It truly
Oh,
was. I went home with some Tune of the Month CDs, and I think for Christmas that year, Ray got me the next 12 or so, and I learned to play the dulcimer. And after about a year and a half, I was reasonably adequate. I could play some stuff. I played some stuff in church, and I was messing around with it, still playing some violin here and there, um, and enjoying it. Went to some more festivals. That's a key word there, festivals. Went to Mountain View that year. I think I went somewhere else, maybe Cincinnati-ish. That there's a festival that's not even there anymore. But met some people, began to get a feeling for these tunes. These are whole new things, and decided
so
I kind of like this.
excuse me, you're talking about like fiddle tunes, right?
Fiddle tunes, yeah,
Yeah.
which were not in my wheelhouse at all.
Right.
Right, so it was a whole new ball game, and for a long time, yes, they all sounded alike, and sometimes they still all sound alike. But I've learned, and I enjoy playing them, and I really, really love playing with other people.
Yeah.
I'd had all that orchestral experience, and I love playing in groups with people and making music that way. So the
Mhm.
jams were important to me. The festivals were important. I've been playing about 3 years, pretty consistently going to the same places, making new friends. Every festival I went to, I'd meet one absolutely fabulous new person and a bunch of other people. But I mean, it was delightful. I was making friends and having a good time. And I was on my way back to Memphis after the Mountain View Festival in April. And I tell people I can show you the curve in the road where the clouds parted and the angels sang. And I had this sudden realization that this is what I want to do. I'm not going to be in early childhood education administration the rest of my life. And I'll always be a musician. I've always been a musician. But this is something I want to do. I want to be good enough for people to invite me to teach at festivals. It's not going to happen overnight. I'm going to actually have to work for it. Oh, this is so not me. I am not a long range planner, but I set some goals that day and said, this is what I want to happen. And I'm willing to work for it. We'll see what I can do.
That's a wonderful moment.
It was. It
Yeah.
is.
I remember when I finally realized taking one admin job after the other and temporary jobs and this and that and the other thing, when I finally realized music is the only constant in my life, besides my husband now of 40 years. But, music was the constant. And it's time for me to really make sure that that's what I put my major focus on. Yeah. So that's a great moment. I'm really happy to hear the way you came to that understanding.
It was remarkable. So I began being more intentional about actually practicing and what I was practicing and setting some other goals, trying to make that happen. I realized that I did not have 30 years to build a reputation. I needed a piece of paper that says, yes, she's pretty good. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to have to compete to get the piece of paper. It wasn't that I really loved competing, although I don't hate it either. I have to confess, I don't hate it. But I needed the piece of paper. I needed a recording that I could send that said, this is what I do.
Mhm.
Because let's be realistic, hammered dulcimer is not a household word.
No.
No, it's not known. And even people who know hammered dulcimer are sometimes skeptical about what it does and what it sounds like.
Mhm.
So I needed something personal. In the meantime, we dropped everything and moved to the Ozarks. Um, Before we did that, when I had set my sights on doing some things, still living in Memphis, and I have to give props to Lee Cagle, who ran that festival for 10 years, he is my dear friend, but also was willing to give me a chance. Nobody knew who I was. I'd been taking classes for 3 years. Um, and she said, do you want to teach a couple of classes? Yes. My background was in education. I knew I could teach,
Mhm.
but being able to have that chance, and what if nobody comes to my classes because they don't know who I am? Well, okay, not many did. But you know what? It got better
Yeah.
and it got better. And then some other people were willing to give me a chance. And I appreciate the encouragement so, so much.
Mhm.
And I think sometimes, I'm not sure this is true, but I think sometimes as women, we're a little more open to giving people a chance
Yeah.
to say, here, see what you can do.
Mhm.
I think you can do it. And that's as important as anything else, is having a door opened and sometimes being shoved through it. So I appreciate that. Oh, off we came to the Ozarks. I still needed a recording. And I knew absolutely nothing about recording other than a CD came out on the other end. That's all I knew. And began listening. I had run into Gary Gallier. He was recommended by somebody in Memphis, actually before we moved. We knew we were going to. And having listened to his recordings, I went, I want to sound like that. I mean, Gary plays mountain dulcimer.
Yeah.
It wasn't the instrument, but it was the sound and the recording quality and all of that. And I knew he had a studio and lives 30 miles up the road. So I called
Right.
Gary and said, "Hey, this is who I am. I want to do this. Will you help me?" And he said, "Sure." Come on over. This kind of guy he is. Um, we talked, and he said, "Hey, there's this guy here named David Wilson who wants in on this gig." And, and I went, "Okay, whatever you say, I'll do it." And and there we went down that road. So in 2014, we put out our first CD, the first recording project. David played a lot of the backup on it. There were some other people who played on it as well. Gary recorded it. He and Dave produced, and it went beyond what I ever would have expected because I knew
Aw.
what I sounded like. But for somebody else to come in and decorate it and fluff it up, it was a whole new animal. And I could not have been more thrilled. So
Yeah, and you guys have been playing partners ever since.
we have.
Yeah, you sound beautiful together.
Thank you. I am very, very lucky to have basically stumbled upon fine musicians who
Mhm.
are encouraging and willing to play with me. Gee whiz. Um, it's been a tremendous blessing.
Yeah, it is. And when we find someone who is, you know, who really complements our style and appreciates our performances, it elevates everything, doesn't it?
It does. The
Yeah,
sum is greater than the parts.
that's right. Absolutely.
So it's been wonderful.
Yeah. I love hearing the story about the first person who decided, Lee Cagle, who decided to basically say, yes, you can teach at my event. Yes, we want to be having you do this. That's always the cheerleaders we have along the way. They're so
Right.
important, isn't it?
Steve Yulberg has been another of my cheerleaders. And
Mm-hmm.
so, and I, having come to this community from another, from the classical world, I think I was kind of blown away by how encouraging people are, how willing to share people are, and am still astonished. Here, yeah, here's this is what I do. Now you do something with it. Um, I don't mind showing you.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
so it's been tremendous.
Yeah. So you're now teaching on a pretty regular basis, is that correct?
Actually, I don't do a whole lot of, okay, I don't do a whole lot of private lessons. I
Mhm.
do some, and what I tell people is if you have something you want to work on, specific, if you want me to listen to something and give you some advice, I'll be happy to do that.
Mhm.
But at this point in my life, I'm not real keen on scheduling every other Tuesday at 12 o'clock
Got it.
because
Got it.
I want some flexibility.
Mhm.
So I love teaching. I love teaching groups at festivals, particularly in person, but I love doing online as well. I think it's just apples and oranges.
Yeah.
Um, so it's not as if I can do one or the other. I appreciate the value of both of those
Mhm.
and loves, but I really love that in person speaking with people and
Mhm.
seeing what they're doing and watching their faces when I can actually watch their faces. So I enjoy teaching. Part of the reason for the scheduling is, my day job. So,
Hi, talk about that day job.
so for the last 8 years, I think. Okay, here's another miracle story. So we moved to the Ozarks in 2011. I thought I was retiring, and after a few months, realized that, oh, I still need health insurance. Darn health insurance.
Mhm.
I had to go back to work. And so I pulled out those early childhood credentials and taught for Head Start for 2.5 years.
Mhm.
um, which was interesting. Um, well-run program, doing great things for the folks here in Taney County. Um, and there were things I liked about it. One of the things was in my pre-K class, because of the demographics in Branson and the fact that everything closes up in the winter, my classroom shut down for January, February, and part of March. So I had 2.5 months off to do music and practice and whatever I wanted to do, which worked well. Um, and after 2.5 years, the folks in charge decided they needed to put the money that funded our classroom into early Head Start and put more emphasis on younger children, toddlers, and they were absolutely right to do so. And they said, "Okay, we're closing your classroom. We're not going to reopen." And I went, "Okay, I can cover my insurance. This is my chance. Can I do this with music?"
Right.
Right. So I've done music all my life, but never full time.
Right.
It's always just been sort of auxiliary. And all right, I need to do this. Oh no, I'm gonna have to treat it like a job. And so um, I went looking. I had heard that there were several places in town that had hammered dulcimer people, and some of them I knew, and some of them I had just met. And I'd heard about this place called the Butterfly Palace, which we had never actually even visited, I'm sorry to say. And I walked up and said, this took enormous amounts of courage because I don't do this. "Hello, I hear you have live music here." And they said, "Yes, we have a hammered dulcimer player. What do you play?" I said, "Well, speak of the devil. I play hammered dulcimer too." And um, I ended up working at the Butterfly Palace several days a week, seasonally in the beginning.
Mhm.
It became an year round, 2 or 3 day a week gig. Okay, circle back all the way to we began visiting Silver Dollar City in the early 80s.
Tell us, what is Silver Dollar City?
Oh, how can you know? Silver Dollar City is the birthplace of dulcimers in the Ozarks. No, it's not. So, however, there's a huge legacy on the history of that. It's an amusement park
Oh, okay.
built in the it's well they celebrated their 50th anniversary. No, 60th, 80th. I don't know. There's a cave there, Marvel Cave, that's of course been there forever. But the Herschend family took over. I don't know, in the maybe 60s, maybe 50s. I'm sorry, I should have looked it up. And built up the cave as an attraction and then built the theme park around it. So everything for a long time it is supposed to be like walking into the 1840s, 50s. Um, the times when the Ozarks were settled.
Mhm.
So there's the Old West Saloon, and the it's morphed a little bit more into amusement park than education than it maybe started out as, and
Mhm.
artistry.
Mhm.
However, they're still really big proponents of artistry and crafts and um, cool things beyond roller coasters. They have those
Okay.
too. Okay.
Okay.
So that's what it is. Um, and that's where I first heard the Hammer Dolls were playing. We found slides from that trip not too long ago. And one of them is of two Hammer Dulcimer players, a gentleman and a lady. The gentleman is John Corbin Goldsberry. He went by John Corbin at the time. The lady was his wife, Jan. It's possible that they were the first people I heard playing, or at
Wow.
least some of. Okay, so at the Butterfly Palace, I play 2 days a week right now, and
Okay.
John Corbin plays the other five.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so it's one of those circle around things.
Oh
We
my
go
goodness.
back, we go back, we go back. And I love that the connections are there.
Yeah.
So let me tell you about the Butterfly Palace.
Okay.
It's an extraordinary venue for folks who want to enjoy the rainforest. Um, where I play is in the aviary. It's a huge room filled with tropical foliage. At any given time, 1,500 exotic butterflies, and lots of happy people. So they come to hang out with the butterflies. The butterflies are obviously free flying. They have little flowers with nectar in them that you can hold, and the butterflies land on them. Um,
Aw.
and basically stroll around and be peaceful. It's just lovely. There are other things to see there too, but the aviary is the thing that's the most special. I'm really proud of the mission of the Butterfly Palace, which is partly to educate people about butterflies and also to partly save the rainforest. So a lot of what we're doing contributes to butterfly farms in Costa Rica and other parts of the world that allow them to farm the area and not cut down more trees. That's important to me. So anyway, I play all day, 2 days a week, from 9 to 4:30. Um, and it's because the butterflies have to be happy. It's really high humidity and really warm in there year round, which it means it's a great place to visit in the winter because it's the warmest place in town. But I have a couple of fans to keep me cool, and I've learned a great deal about butterflies. I've learned a really, really lot about butterflies, and I never fail to appreciate the diversity. Oh my goodness, they're extraordinarily beautiful in so many different configurations and colors, and the wings, and they are truly amazing. They're fascinating facts. Okay, DJ, what do you call a butterfly with no wings?
Warm?
Butter. Okay, that's my one joke. You got it. That's not why actually one of the things. Yes, well, yeah, I did learn that there. So, um, people ask the most interesting questions. Um, one of them is, "Do butterflies hear you?" Well, maybe sort of ish. Some butterflies do have some membranes on their close to where their wings are attached that will sense vibrations. They have antennas. Sometimes they can sense vibrations. Um, do the butterflies like dulcimer music? Well, as I tell them, they've never complained. That's all I can tell you. They've not complained. Do they land on your dulcimer while you're playing? Yes. Have you ever hit one? Not yet. I've had to stop playing a few times because they land right in the middle and I can't work around them. I have to, move them somewhere else. Um, do
What
they
an
have
amazing
personalities?
gig.
Oh, they're hysterical. Um, the very first day that I worked there, one landed on my head right here. It starts walking around. It tickles. It tickles like crazy. And I'm thinking, focus, focus, don't swat it, focus. I've learned to deal with a lot of insects in my face. It's okay. Um, the insects are almost as interesting as the people who come to visit. Who, I mean, the point of having live music is so that people can talk to us, and I love that. So they come and they say, "What is that thing?" Or they are really adventurous and they will say, "Now, is that is that a harpsichord?" No, they don't know what that is either.
Mhm.
And I was really amazed, and I think this audience can handle this. I was amazed the first time it happened, and I thought, well, that's the first. It's a fluke. It'll never happen again. But the second time it happened, I began to wonder about people. When someone said, "Is that a mandolin?"
Oh my.
I know. I worry about them. But I have met friends of Rich Mullins. I have met people who have then come to dulcimer festivals, including Everett. That's in Michigan. It's 800 miles away. And I see these people at the
Mhm.
same places. I love this when my worlds cross, when the lines cross and I run into people in different places. Um, People sometimes will ask for specific tunes, and when I can, I'm happy to oblige.
Mhm.
Sometimes people will sing with me.
Aw.
People will relate wonderful things to me. There was a lady who was in tears one day because I was playing Danny Boy, and that was her father's favorite song, and one of those things. So those things happen all the time. It's a fascinating place to play. Um, and we think it's the only place in the world with live hammered dulcimer music 7 days a week, except when one of us is out of town. So that's
7 days
pretty
a week and
special,
all year long.
right?
Right.
Open year round, and we appreciate very much the fact that the owner and the management are willing to commit to live music and having a person there all that time.
Mhm.
Um, they know it adds to the experience. They see the value, and that's kind of a dying thing. So I
Mhm.
appreciate it.
That's amazing.
It is. It's a remarkable place to be,
Mhm.
and good folks to work for.
That sounds fantastic. So, speaking of meeting people from Everett, for example, that just finished, didn't it?
Yes, I haven't recovered yet. I'm
So,
still.
what do they call that?
It is the ODPC Fun Fest. ODPC stands for Original Dulcimer Players Club.
Okay.
All right. Is it the
But
original
everybody
club?
calls it Everett.
Everett, I know. Because ODPC is too long, you have to remember what order that comes in. So, Original Dulcimer Players Club began 61 years ago. They celebrated an anniversary last year. This year was the 50th festival.
Wow.
It was. It's a wonderful history of why there are so many dulcimers in Michigan. The original Dulcimer Players Club is not the original club, it's the original Dulcimer Players. The original Dulcimer, of course, sorry to say this, is of course the hammer Dulcimer. It was
Ah,
the original Dulcimer.
okay.
So that's the designation.
Hmm.
And it's still, I think, about the largest gathering of hammer dulcimer players ever anywhere. At one point, they held a world record and has become, over the last, I want to say, 20 years, much more open to other instruments, including mountain dulcimers and everything, all the other periphery, all the other instruments. So it's 3 days of workshops, concerts every night, jams everywhere of extraordinary diversity, all for $20, basically. It's $20 for the
Wow.
festival. The
That's
workshops
amazing.
are free. Um, the concerts are free as long as you've paid that $20.
Uh-huh.
And how
Wow.
do they do it? Nobody gets paid.
Ah,
Nobody gets paid.
ha.
So it's one of those, it's an offering of love.
Hmm.
People go because it's fun, it's family, it's just, it's an alternate universe for a week, actually.
And
I felt like that this week anyway. Um,
people camp there.
People camp and people begin going the 1st of July or the end of June, 1st of July, to be there for the fireworks, even though the festival's not until the third weekend.
Ah,
So they go and stay put, camp, jam,
wow.
have a blast.
Wow.
So it's pretty special. I think this was
Sounds
my
like
ninth one.
that's amazing.
And I was really excited. I've played on the concerts each year, and they always make a point of featuring on the Saturday night concert. They always invite the previous year's national champion. So this year, Mickey Sweeney made her debut on the big stage at Everett,
Ah.
um, and that was delightful.
Mhm.
Um, I was thrilled this year because Catherine, the stage manager, had asked me if I would MC one night. Okay, so I have zero experience MCing. All right, I have this much experience MCing because I did the contest at Mountain View last year. So, sure, I said, why not? I can do this. I love an audience. And she said, well, who would you like to MC with you? And I'm looking at the lineup going, okay, who else? Friday night, I think I want to do because it's got all these cool players and it's going to be a good concert. That'll be easy to introduce. Who's not playing that night that I can, that feels comfortable, that would be fun. And Karen Ashbrook and Paul Orts were coming for the first time in 10 years. And I said, Karen, that would be awesome. And Karen said, yes, I will. And of course, then we had to work on the really important thing, what to wear. So we decided go sparkly because it was the 50th anniversary and they needed a little class. So we went sparkly with it and had a really good time co-emceeing the Friday night concert. It was fun.
That sounds fun. I
It
saw the
was.
pictures. You guys were really hamming it up. I loved it.
Oh no, we would never do that.
Erin Ashbrook is going to be our featured headlining hammer dulcimer teacher for Dulcimoon in January.
Fabulous.
So that's going to be great. And you also said something about putting together a new publication.
I did. I've been threatening to do so for several years and sort of finally said, okay, you have to do this now. And I'm working on a collection of hymn arrangements that I do. I do a lot of hymn arrangements and have recorded most of them for solo dulcimer. I've done lots of arrangements for three-part harmony, I call it triple hammered harmony. It's for three dulcimers or whatever kind of instruments. And I love doing those, but I have not put down my arrangements for solo dulcimer. So I'm working on that. I was hoping to have it done by now. Of course, it isn't. However, what it will include is 10 hymns with standard notation, with notes about how I play it, where these chords are, and how I configure which hand where, as well as sound files for each one. And that's the holdup right now. As soon as we get those recorded, it's done. And I hope to have that out digitally, either on a flash drive or downloadable, so that you can print what you want, listen to what you want.
That's
do with
great.
it.
So if people are interested in that, what's the website to go to?
That would be ilacemears.com.
That's
Say
easy.
what? ILACEMEARS.com.
You have a singular name.
That's one way to look at it.
Yes. Well, before we end, we got another minute or so. If you were to talk to someone who was thinking of starting dulcimer, hammer dulcimer, or is currently working on it and needs some encouragement, what would you say to them?
I got a new pair of hammers 2 years ago now. I don't know, last year, from Katie Moritz. They're absolutely exquisite. She put dogwood blossoms on the inserts, which is what I asked for. And what I asked her to inscribe on one of them is what I believe and what this dulcimer community has taught me. Never say never. That's the most important thing I can give you. How specific is that to hammer dulcimer? It's not, of course. But never say never. Get out there and try stuff. Don't be afraid to experiment, and don't be afraid of messing up. Steve Yulberg taught me. People want you to succeed. Don't be afraid to go on stage. People want you to to do well. They want to have a good time. And people are generally rooting for you. In a jam, nobody's listening to you. Experiment, play. In the first place, if it's a hammered dulcimer, it's going to sound beautiful no matter what you do.
That's right.
It's you can hardly mess it up. So get out there and try.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to, and don't be afraid to play for people. Um, they're always intrigued because it's a new and very different thing.
Mhm.
Mountain dulcimers are the same. A lot of people aren't familiar with them or what they can do. Um,
The instrument is your introduction.
it is.
Mhm.
It is. It's a great conversation opener. What is that thing?
Yeah, what is that thing?
How
Well,
much does it weigh?
yeah, exactly. There's that.
There's that.
I am so glad we were able to schedule a talk with you today. And I want everyone else to know that this is going to be available for viewing at the same link that you came to for the talk today. And I'm hoping that we will get lots of replays for you. And thank you so much. Post Everett, I wish you some rest and and then on to the butterflies again, right?
On to the butterflies and on to the Gateway Festival next weekend. I'm off to Illinois, back to Illinois in the corn.
All right.
So
Okay. Thanks so much.
thank you. Thanks, DJ. Thank you, Erin Mae.
You're welcome. Okay. Bye-bye.